morning, good morning, good morning. This is Tasemere, your host of the Blackout live from New York. You guys may or may not be able to see my co-host of one, um, Elijah, today, but he's joining us as well as my special commentator. Yes, we have upgraded. We got a whole commentator from Colorado. Super excited to have her joining us again so we can have some really transparent, open dialogue. But let me just set this up for you guys today. This is the Blackout Live from New York with me, your host, Tasemere. The purpose of this segment is to celebrate Black folks across the diaspora and to have open dialogue about Black economics, how we reimagine trends in business, and exploring the magic that we have. Today, I have my commutator, Kenyetta S. founder of 6th Gen Venture Studio, and we're going to be discussing a couple of things. Like, let me just bring her up here. Hold on before we get into it. Hey, Kenyetta, how are you?
Hey, my sister friend, how are you? Hey,
I'm
Eli.
good. I'm good. Hey, Eli, say hi to Auntie Kenyetta. Oh, he's into his little show.
Let me
That's
sit back because I know I can be comfortable with you.
But thank you so much for joining us. I know you woke up super early. I got you up early on a Saturday morning. So thank you so much for
You're whipping me in
joining
shape.
joining today. Let's have some fun with it. So I'm gonna let you go with it because we were in the green room, which is why we were a couple minutes late, chopping it up, and I had to remember, oh shoot, let's get on air. So I'm gonna let you take it off. What do you want to talk about today? This is your home today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll segue it. Excuse me. I think I'll segue it by just like talking about what my current experiences that I'm navigating through, as you put it. I'm going to start using that, not going through, but navigating. I'm gonna start using that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. I was telling you, like, I know that the conversation is going into cryptocurrency, NFTs, and the metaverse. And I think that those things are important. I think that they're inevitable. But for Black people, I'm afraid that the focus is going to veer too far away from the importance of investing in real estate. Not just owning your own home, number one, owning where you live, and investing in real estate. Like, I think the conversation is going to veer too far away from that. Um, we see gentrification, and I'm not going to make it about gentrification, but I'm gonna just quickly throw that in there. We see gentrification in just my own personal current experience where you don't own where you live and you're at the mercy of the people that you're renting from. That's a scary situation to be in, right? Like I have cryptocurrency, right? I have things that I can't see. But what's still important is we have to maintain focus on investing in real estate. We can't veer too far away from that conversation. Um, I like that we were talking about the metaverse yesterday. We were talking about cryptocurrency. All those things are important, and we're going to touch on that. We're going to segue into that in a moment. But I had to throw that in there. People, do not lose focus. You must own your home. Number one, yes, and not just own one home, but investing in real estate. How many of us? I rarely hear people talking about the next thing I'm focusing on now. Not as like a career, but just a personal thing that I want to do is securitization of land and real estate. How many of us are having conversations about you can securitize anything? This NFT, what is NFT? The simplest way to explain an NFT or cryptocurrency is they've taken something and they've securitized it. Securitizing meaning they've taken it, they are backing it with something. Art is being backed and it's being chopped up into little pieces that you can sell. So, and we'll talk about that. But I rarely hear us having conversations like that. Like I don't hear us having conversations about coming together to purchase a building. I don't hear us having conversations about securitizing. Okay, we don't have the money to do it, but you know what? We can put together a fund to do it, to purchase it. I see it happening with Tulsa Real Estate Fund. I'm not an active investor in the fund, but I do like what what he did with it. But we got to elevate the conversation. We too often are bandwagon people. We got to start pioneering conversations. Every time I talk to somebody, all right, you're having conversations about blockchain and NFT and cryptocurrency. And I hear the conversations with, I'm not going to name any platforms because I'm not here to drag anybody. But the conversation is always bandwagon conversations. It's never us pioneering. What are we pioneering? Okay, you're investing in a token. How about Don Dixon? You tokenize the shares in your company. How about that? Don Dixon is the only black person that I know that has tokenized equity in her company. No other black person has done that since. But we're talking about buying cryptocurrency. It's like what she said. It's not just the currency itself or tokenization. It's about the technology behind it. Blockchain. There's art on blockchain, right? It can't just be us talking about buying the tokens. We have to start saying, how do we utilize the blockchain technology to grow our own company? We got to start having pioneering conversations. I'm tired of, I don't even want to talk to black people about any of these things because every time I talk to them, it's a conversation of, it's a bandwagon conversation. What tokens you invested in? What cryptocurrency you invested in? How about what, are you working on it? Are you creating any cryptocurrency? How about that? Talk to me about that. That's my rant. That's my story. And I'm sticking.
Well, I think so. To give the viewers some backdrop, we had a conversation yesterday around, as Kenyetta said, cryptocurrency, the multiverse. My little two piece, my 2 cents, is that I think people are being lulled to sleep in something that they don't quite understand, right? And as I said yesterday on my interview on my castmate, my network mate show yesterday, where he has a show dedicated to cryptocurrency, I said that people have to think about, what do I want to get out of it? Because I think that we are like, this is a new flashy thing that everyone is talking about. So I need to do something. But I don't know if people are critically thinking about what it is that why are they doing what they're doing, right? It's like, I'm gonna just buy this because so and so put it on a podcast and it seems super cool and I think I could be a millionaire.
Oh,
But
and one should, right? Like money is meant to work for you and grow. Yeah.
but I think that we have to stop waiting for someone to tell us what to do, and we have to start thinking about, what do we want to do for ourselves, right? And I think that that's a little bit harder to do. And so then when we were talking about the multiverse, I was like, I think that we are blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. And I get that tech allows you to make things that you thought what maybe might not have been thought of before. But I'm kind of scared because unless the multiverse, like I told you yesterday, Kenyetta, I'm gonna be able to go to Wakanda and be a citizen of Wakanda. I don't know why I would be in the multiverse. I want to be Wakanda. I want to be like a citizen of America and a citizen of Wakanda. Can that happen?
So let's grab that for a moment. You said that you feel like we're being lulled to sleep, and you also stated that you feel like we're just gravitating towards the next shiny thing, right? And let's grab that and look at it more closely. Let's say that were the case, but let's have a thought experiment and say, all right, what if we, like you said, took control of what this means for us? Instead of us joining any metaverse, and I honestly, I'm still not sure what that looks like. What is the metaverse? What does it look like in action? But here's what I will put forth: that it can't just be us joining. For Black people, it could be, we could potentially create a world that we, in recent history, and by recent I mean, maybe, let's say, a good 2,000 years of written history, haven't seen. The world for us, Black people, has been a world of oppression. It's been a world where we're being colonized. And I'm not just talking about Black Americans, I'm talking about the entire diaspora, from the motherland to here. What if we decided, we dictated what the metaverse looks like for us, and we created a world where instead of white supremacy, there's black supremacy?
But that's deep. I
What if we
think that
created a world where instead of we're oppressed, that we are leaders, we have power over our destiny, right? Like people say you have power over your destiny, right? And that's true, but how true is that for a person who's black? How much power do you have over you? If you were born in crack 80s, if you were born in Brooklyn, I was born in Brooklyn, Bed. Now I'm not gonna play the violin, but I was born in Brooklyn, Bed Stuy, Lafayette Gardens projects, right? If you were born in that era, to me, I think that was straight warfare that was waged against us. It was straight warfare. Nobody can tell me different. The things that I've seen people doing on the street, sometimes in broad daylight for a hit. I'm talking about we went from having families, having people, entire family structures break down in a span of. I heard somebody say they watched it happen in a span of 3 years, right? So, how much control over your destiny do you have if you're black? I don't know. I feel like I have control over my destiny, but sometimes I question how much control I have, right? Because so much is dictated in America by your skin color. What if the metaverse became a world where we created something that's totally counter to all of that? Where we created a world where we are the powerful ones. That's the conversation I want to have. I don't want to have a bandwagon conversation. What's Mark Zuckerberg going to do? What's Elon Musk going to do? I don't want to have those conversations anymore with my people. I want to start having pioneering conversations. We can create Wakanda, and we don't have to call it Wakanda because I think they probably own the rights to it anyway. We probably would get sued for using that name anyway. But that's what it can be, and that's the conversation we should and need to be having, not a bandwagon conversation. Let's have a
well, I think
pioneering
another
conversation.
conversation that we probably should also
We
be
can
thinking
become our
about.
own gods.
I think another conversation that we probably should also be thinking about is what is underneath this, right? Because we know, and I shared this with you yesterday, Facebook started as a platform to connect college students to each
I
other.
remember that. I
At
remember
some
that.
point, it became a platform that everybody can join.
Right.
And then at another point, it became data mining and selling data, right? So if you just think of the evolution of things that have happened, right? Is the metaverse truly intended to be this virtual reality experience? Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of the Flash from Marvel. I have no clue, right? Or is this going to be something that has other objectives that we don't know about? Because we know that that's probably going to happen, right? And to your point, how are we going to create something if we can? What are we going to create? Because we have a tendency, I mean, Black people across the diaspora, of contributing content to platforms where we have no ownership in, and then being duplicated or being excluded from the content that we created that made that platform popular. That's not just Facebook, that's TikTok. Black creators were super mad at TikTok because they were coming up with these dances and they felt like others were not doing them properly, but they were kind of getting popular off of something that they didn't create. So we're constantly creating culture. We know we can create culture. We know that we are innovative, but we're innovative in ways that don't serve us properly. And then we get upset because I think sometimes people think that, like, this is equality, right? So now I'm upset because I'm not being fairly treated in some way for the exchange of what I'm creating, but we haven't really been intentional about what are we creating? Why are we creating this? Like, I'm sure that other people create and they put a lot of time in intellectual property. I'm sure that the multiverse didn't just come up in 2021. I'm sure that this has been something that has been baking, cooking, testing, doing something years and years and years before we even knew about it, right? So I'm almost certain that all the intellectual property has been secured. All the bags have been secured of how you're going to be able to do whatever it is that you need to do to own whatever it is that you need to own. We are behind the eight ball in ownership. That's what I hear this conversation being, a conversation around true ownership. We are so far behind thinking about how to own something, even to the beginning of our conversation, real estate, that and then we get upset because your landlord owns that property. They can decide to do whatever they want to do, triple the rent, double the rent, decide that they're going to use eminent domain and sell it, and then they're going to build something. You're at the whim of your landlord, basically, if you don't own your property. But even own your land, right? Because you can own the property, and eminent domain says, even though you own the property, the government still owns the land, or the city, or the township, or whatever. So if they decide, like, hey, we need this parcel to do whatever, they can still come in and grab it. So we haven't been having a lot of conversations around strategically owning our ish. And that goes into content as well, right? When we don't really have enough conversations around how are we going to secure our stuff? Like, how are we going to secure what we come up with? How are we going to make sure that we have the rights and the ownership to dictate what it is that we want to do? I think that those need to be some of the conversations. And to your point around cryptocurrency, I think that it's something super new. I'm still learning a lot about it. I'm not even a newbie. I'm the step below newbie. I'm still just
I'm
I'm
definitely not
just
in.
I'm at like definitions. What does that mean? What are you talking about? How does this work? But I think that I'm putting the time into understanding that, because here's the thing. When you understand how something works, it does not matter all the different reiterations of that thing, right? Because you understand intimately how this thing works. So no matter how somebody changes it, upgrades it, or whatever, you understand at a very intimate level what went into creating that. But if you just jump into something without trying to search for understanding, you are at the whim of someone explaining what this update is. Like these iPhones, I have no understanding of these freaking updates. All I know is that I updated and now my camera don't work. I have no idea what these updates do. Like, what are they supposed to be fixing? I have no clue what is happening. My phone just tells me to do this update. I do the update, and then sometimes the phone still works. Sometimes the phone is like glitchy. The phone might be telling me, hey girl, you need a new updated iPhone. I don't know what's happening, but I don't understand that, right? And I'm coming from this because I had a previous job where I had to help build an app. Now, I am not an app developer. I'm not somebody from a STEM background, but going through the exercise to intimately knowing how the coding is happening, every time the app developer made an update, I understood what was happening. I didn't understand all the coding that was in the background. I didn't understand where how all this stuff was coming together, but I definitely understood the fundamentals of how it was working, right? Like it is created to do this and this and this function. So because I understood that at an intimate level, it didn't matter what updates this app developer did, because I was always going back to like the bare bones before it used to do this, and this. Not sure why it's not doing this. Something isn't working, and then troubleshooting from there. I think we have to have that kind of understanding with all this new stuff that's coming out, because if not, who's giving us the information? Who controls the information for our understanding? It's not us. We getting the information from like a third, fourth, fifth party, or someone else's interpretation of how cryptocurrency and blockchain work. That's just what it is. So what if the people decide blockchain gonna work different tomorrow? What if they did? What they could? What if they just said, we did a major update to this infrastructure and now blockchain works differently, and you have no understanding of what the hell blockchain was supposed to be doing, but you invested. What do you do?
Yeah, science on that. I'm gonna do more research on the tech, not cryptocurrency. I'm gonna do more research on the technology behind it, the blockchain. Next time I come back, and you hold me to this, I will have an intelligent response to that.
Yeah, please.
Right now, I don't.
I used to go to a meetup called Legal Hackers in New York. And this was a bunch of different people, sometimes attorneys, sometimes just people in tech. And they were trying to hack and understand how different things were working. Like they were like, we are investing in stuff, but we are also trying to have understanding around how it's working. And I think our community needs to also attempt to have understanding. And that doesn't mean just on tech stuff, that's just life stuff. Like understand how you gonna grow money in a CD account. Like what the heck does that mean? Like understand how you are reading your lease if you're renting. Understand what your employer wants from you as a work product, right? Like searching for understanding to really understand what you're doing, how you're doing, why do you have to do it this way. I think if you have that understanding, you can think your way out of almost anything. But we are so used to not needing to think because we are memorizing information. This goes back to school. What do? You memorize something to take a test. It doesn't mean that you understood what the test was about. It means that somebody told you to memorize this formula and plug these numbers in. So if you have the ability to memorize, you can pass the test. But does that mean that you understood what the test was? Probably not. Most of us probably have lack of understanding from elementary school because we were just memorizing to pass a test. That's what I think. And I think that that's why it's so hard for us to think now because we're so used to just memorizing and then regurgitating information in the way that someone says that they want us to talk about something. But very few of us actually have been searching for understanding outside of a test score. What do you think?
Tasemere, that was so powerful. I can literally feel synapse and this part of my brain firing off. I haven't felt that part active in a very long time. You're right. I think that first of all, the conversation has just morphed. I want us to stay here and let's fork this because I want to. This is you've taken the we started off with the real estate and ownership. I was really just me venting. I wasn't the topic, folks. I was just me venting. We're not so. I have my daughter in this school, right? And the curriculum is an international baccalaureate curriculum. And citizens of the world, they want them to go out into the world and be change makers, something like that. Something that they said on the website. And and so I'm talking to my cousin in Georgia, and I was saying, well, if I relocated there, which I don't know if I'm going to do that because I really love Colorado. I said, if I relocate there, good morning, I would have to find a school that's comparable to the one that she attends. And she said that, well, she said this woman said this to her. She said the woman said, well, it's not really important what school they go to because, even 7. It's not really important what school they go to at this age. It matters most when they're 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 when they go to high school. And I didn't respond right away. I reflected on what she said, and I said, I came back 10 minutes. It was a long time. It was like 10 minutes because I rolled it over in my mind. How do I feel about that statement? And I finally, because she said that the woman had a PhD and the woman was very, she had run schools. And And I said, I came back, I said, I don't agree with that. I said, I gave her this statement. I heard the statement a couple years ago. The statement goes, if you give me a boy for the first 7 years of his life, and I'll show you what kind of man he's going to be. That those first couple of years are critical. And she said, well, what's important to you? Why is this school? So that's one thing. So I want to throw that in there. So she said, well, why is this school important? I said, this school is giving her engineering projects. She's being challenged, not just to memorize, because she gets curriculum, she gets the schoolwork. But I said, they're not just doing that. They're challenging her to create. I can show you functional projects that she built her own vending machine. She's built bridges, right? And I told my cousin, I said, that's important to me because a public school education doesn't teach you how to think. It teaches you how to become a professional memorizer. I need my daughter to think because one, not only is it gonna drive who she becomes, and I'm not really focused on what she wants to do. Whatever she do, it must become ownership. If it's a doctor, then you need to be thinking own your own claims. If it's a lawyer, you need to be whatever you want to do. I don't really push that on her. At the end of the day, it needs to be ownership. Whatever that. If it's an engineer, then you need to be thinking about building your own company. Whatever that looks like for you. But it's important for me that she knows how to think. One, because of problem solving abilities, right? I think one of the things that Black people struggle with is problem solving because one, we haven't been taught to think. Problem solving requires thinking. It requires breaking something down, as you just stated, to this most fundamental level and understanding. Okay, how did I get here? What's in back? What are the laws? If it's a legal situation, what are the laws in back? Why did they do that? Problem solving requires thinking, and Black people intentionally have not been taught to think. That's
And
number
I think
one.
that that's one of our challenges. Like, let's put a pin in that right there. That's one of our challenges for mobility, because mobility means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And what I think many people think mobility equates to money. But when I look at different positions, it's really just memorizing the protocol that that entity has come up with and figuring out how to perfect it. It doesn't mean that you actually understand, question that, right? And when you begin to question certain things that are happening, sometimes you could be labeled like a troublemaker,
Or this is my favorite. You think too hard.
you think too, yeah, you think too hard, you're whatever. For me, when I was in school, I stuck, like, I'll be quite honest, I sucked at math and science. I excelled at history, and the reason why is because I was able to write. There was no multiple choice most of the time when you I was a history major in undergrad. At some point, there's no multiple choice questions. Everything is like, tell me why you think this happened, and piece these things together, piece these time periods together, and give me like what your thoughts are or your perspective is. And I felt liberated because I could say what I was thinking and how I was viewing something and how these events made sense to me. It might not have made sense to someone else in that same way. They might have seen an event differently, but I struggled with memory. I struggled with memorizing stuff, which is why I wasn't really good at multiple choice exams, because I will always be like, oh my gosh, I think it could be A, but it could also be C. And then there's no choice that says A and C. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to just close my eyes and just circle something, hopefully is right. But when I had to like write down my thoughts, I always did well. Like, if I could explain, like, I wanted math to be something for me to explain why I put the 3 in that place. What had me think that the 3 went there? But you're not able to explain that when I was doing math. So it's just like, if you get the formula wrong and you plug the numbers in wrong, then your answer is going to be wrong. But I wanted to explain why I thought my answer was right, because I thought I was supposed to put this here. And I don't know where that came from. And maybe it was from teaching from home, Maybe my mom was like doing some, my mom is someone that wants to know what you think. She doesn't really care whether your conclusion is different than her conclusion. She wants to know how you got there, right? So how did you get to doing this to do
Well,
that?
I think, and that's going to bring me into the second thing I want to say. When you say, how was your mind wired that way? I think, and I'm no scientist, but I think partially you came into that world with your brain, your mind designed that way.
Mm.
Let me explain what I mean. So the second thing that I was saying, why it's important to me that I send Eva into an environment where she's being encouraged and challenged to think, is because everything that we do today is going to impact the next generations, right? Like we say, epigenetic coding. Trauma talks about how trauma is stored up in the DNA, right? I think about the Jews. I think I heard somebody say this recently. One of the reasons why they've been so successful, no matter what, is because throughout the generations, they've they've been telling themselves, training themselves to think that they can be successful at whatever they do. That gets transferred into the DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we do today, everything that you teach, so you're rewiring Eli's mind. You're teaching him new things that you haven't been taught, right? That's all being stored up in his DNA. He's going to then teach his children, right? He'll probably see things that you didn't know, that you didn't maybe teach him, right? That he'll learn. He'll he'll teach his children, and that would in turn be encoded in their DNA, right? So perhaps, let me just say, perhaps your mother, your father, they gave you whatever they have going on in their DNA. They gave you that kind of mind, right? Um, Eva is she's more artistic than I am. I'm a thinker. I like math and science. I love numbers, right? That's my thing. But everything that we do is being stored up in the DNA. Everything that we do is being stored up in our DNA, and we are literally rewiring our mind. So you say that you're not a think, you're not a memorize, you're not good at memorization, right? He may come out to be either good at it or bad at it, but his mind is going to be more intelligent than yours in many ways. So your mind came out
Oh,
that way simply.
what? Let
Your
me
mind
tell
came out
you.
that way simply because that's just the way you came into the world with it, wired that way.
Let me tell you, Elijah, since he was baking in the oven, well, even before baking in the oven, I had this crazy idea before I got pregnant because Elijah was a planned pregnancy, right? So before I did that, I was already thinking about what I wanted this person to be like.
Mm.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that came to be.
I wrote a
But
business plan for Eva. I wrote a whole parenting plan for her
but
of her
I
whole
was
life.
I was thinking like, okay, what qualities would I want this person to have? What would like not the things that I would want him to do per se, but the qualities that I would want him to have. How would I like how do I see myself as a parent? This was before I was even really a parent, right? But then when he was
Before you
baking and
got pregnant.
yeah, when he was baking and cooking, I was working at a lot of different kind of projects for entrepreneurs and invested in a lot of black centric stuff, right? Like kind of like what we're doing here on blackusa.news, like talking about how do we elevate the community of black people. And so now when black folks are on the television, like PBS, Eli is tuned in. He's like, wait,
Wow.
what's happening, right? So I definitely see that like my interest and what I chose to put in front of him, even when he was on the inside, as I call it, is starting to translate into different things now. So I'm super excited to see how what he does as he grows. super disappointed that he said the word cake and not mama the other day. So I was like,
My man's a foodie.
what are you talking about? What are you talking about? How could you say cake? But to also back up, my nephew is super STEM focused, but he's also very business focused. And the reason for that is because kids emulate what they see you do, right? And so since he was 3, I have been an entrepreneur. And so now he knows no other world outside of all of the people in his orbit work for themselves. So it's natural for him to say, like, I'm also going to be an entrepreneur now because I don't know anything else. This is just what everybody around me does. I don't know anything else. So I think that it's also like teaching happens in school, definitely.
Most
But
of it happens in life.
I think teaching happens in life. Teaching happens with your parents, right? And so at some point, it's also up to us to decide and discern what information we're going to make available and what kind of person we want this person to be. And I think that sometimes when people don't invest in that, and that's not an age thing of thinking about what you want this person to be, because we always put everything on the youth, right? Everything is like the youth is going to build a better tomorrow. The youth is going to do this. The youth is going to do that. At some point, we were the youth, right? We were the people that people were looking at like, this is going to be the generation that's going to do this. This is going to be the generation that's going to do that. But it's not enough to just say that. I think we also have to give them the tools and do that, right? Like I think that if we don't do that, we leave them open to other people teaching them, because the world is going to teach, right? Like, so we don't educate our Black kids into what we want them to be, then we are constantly going to be coming back with this conversation of how come we all can't get on the same page? How come we can't do this? How come this person is putting their time, money, efforts, energy into this thing? How come we aren't thinking that way? But I think it's on us, all of us, as these little people's village of life, of world, or whatever, to try to control the imagery that we decide to put out on an individual level. Like if we could just all think about, like, on an individual level, this is what I want to get back to the youth of tomorrow, then I think we will be able to maybe get into a better place and position to stop having the same conversation.
What do you want to leave for the youth?
I want them to question and think. Like I have taught my nephew, like, okay, again, like what my mom taught me, I don't care if you did so. I remember, I'll give you a perfect example. One day he threw a shoe at someone. They came to his house and he threw the shoe. And my sister-in-law calls me and she's like, you need to speak to your nephew because he just hit someone with a shoe. So I get on the phone and I'm like, okay, I call him Kawali. I say, okay, Kawali, why did you throw the shoe? Not that you're in trouble. I don't want you, because I think we also use the word trouble a little bit too much. Not that you're in trouble, but I want to understand why you threw the shoe. So he told me why he threw the shoe. And when he explained to me why he did what he did, in my adult brain, I was like, I probably would have threw the shoe too, right? Because the way that his reasoning made sense, that the shoe throwing was like a natural reaction, right?
He didn't like the person's energy, the spirit, because kids pick up on these things.
But I had to explain to him that it just wasn't nice and he should probably use a different way to express himself. So much so that we got in trouble in first grade because I had been telling him when I had something that I needed to say to him, because I'm not into like public embarrassment, I would always say, let me talk to you for a second over here. And it would be like our own little conversation. So I guess he had something to say to his teacher. So he tells his teacher, let me talk to you for a second over here. Now, the teacher wasn't equipped with that was the language that we had gave him, right? Because this is all that he knew is like, okay, you do something, I need to talk to you over here on the side for a moment. She wasn't equipped with that was the language that we had given him. So she saw that as him being rude. When what he wanted to do was to tell her how he felt in a private setting, right? So I had to eat that, right? I was like, my brother called me like, your nephew is asking the teacher to talk to him over here. And I was like, oh, my bad. I have been like doing that with him for a while. I didn't necessarily know he was going to do that with the teacher. But this is how, to your point, we can instill whatever we want to instill into little people. And I don't think that this person's perception of doesn't matter what school they go to until they're like almost like a teenager. I think that that's totally off, because what happens if they don't get the fundamentals, elementary school, middle school, and you're only concerned about like high school, college? They might not even be able to get into that school for high school, or they might not be able to get into that school for college. And if they did, they would be lost, because in my opinion, education builds on fundamentals. If you don't understand 1 + 1 is 2, then when you get to multiplication, you won't be able to get that. And then when you get to algebra, you won't be able to get, because something was missing from the beginning, right? So, as you build on certain theories, going backwards sometimes is harder to do and a little frustrating, which is why it's easier to mold people when they're younger. So I don't understand where that thought process came from.
We got to devote not next weekend, but the following weekend, the next show. I think the title should, because I was talking about this with a relative, a younger relative who's a parent. She's a married parent. She's not a single parent. She's a married parent. How can Black people parent differently to mold a better, I don't want to say a better generation, but a different generation of Black people? How can we parent differently?
That's a loaded question, because that I have views that I don't think should be aired on TV.
Give me, okay, before we go, you give me one and I'll give you one. How about that? And
okay,
that will set up. I think we should do a show on that.
So one unpopular view that I have seen a lot of people do is this whole idea of, I'm not going to spank my kids. That is like something that's contrary to me. I think there is a difference between spanking and abuse. I think discipline is in the middle of that, right? And sometimes I think that a well-placed ass whooping course corrects a lot of stuff in the very beginning, right? Now, I think that you have to determine whether that's the right thing for your kid or not, because certain kids don't respond to certain things the same way. But this whole notion of, I'm never going to discipline my kids by way of spanking, I think is asinine to me. That's my personal opinion. I'm not saying give your kid a black eye and beat them up, right? But I do think that there is a healthy fear that children should have of their parents. Because I think, like, if you don't have that, I think that when you become a teenager, when your kids become teenagers and really testy and really challenging, and you've been like, this is my BFF and my best friend, and they take that like, I'm going to talk to you like you my homegirl on the street, then you're kind of like, wait, what happened? But you never disciplined before. So then how do you discipline a 15-year-old if you've never disciplined them before?
I don't know if, speaking from personal experience, because I got my ass was as a zip. My mother overdid it. I didn't, for the kind of personality that, like, Eva doesn't need ass whippings, because her personality is very gentle. She's a very gentle spirit. She doesn't need that.
So probably like a stern yelling would equate for that. But I
Oh
just
yeah.
think that sometimes that's my contrary belief. I just think that like sometimes depending on the kid and the circumstance. Elijah has been on timeout. He's only 10 months. I think I put him on timeout at like
No, some
five
form of
months.
discipline is
And he had
necessary.
to like stand and face the wall. He couldn't even stand. So I'm like holding him there, telling him he can't play for 1 minute because he needs to think about what he did and how that wasn't right. Now, my mom thought it was completely hilarious that he was on timeout at 5 months. But I was like, listen, I gotta maintain some kind of control because I'm small and my voice is small. And if I don't assert myself as an authority that he can know that like I'm not another baby that he's playing with, I'm gonna be getting beat up. And I can't walk around getting beat up by a kid, my kid. That can't happen. So I was like, I have to be strategic around how do I let him know the power dynamics that are at play here. And so maybe it's not spanking, but more so power dynamics have to be part of the conversation when you're raising children. And I think that that's one thing that I would say I have seen people around my age have gotten out of the power dynamics and more into like we're on the same level. And I just don't know how to be on the same level with the kid. I can empathize, I can understand your thought process, but I like to keep it that I am an authority figure to you. And because of my authority, I have a certain level of respect that is dictated and demanded. And I'm going to respect you back, but it's not the same thing. It's not this whole like, I'm not like Elijah, I'm not 10 months, right? Like he has to listen to what I tell him, but he also has to listen to other authority figures that I place in his life as well. And I think that that's will be my second thing that I feel that a lot of parents have said, and I have heard them say, you don't have to listen to anybody except for mommy and daddy. And then that becomes problematic because then when your kids are out of control, you're looking for this village to help and they can't help because they have no authority to help because you've already told your kid that like they have nobody to listen to except for mommy and daddy. So like they don't have to listen to any other adult figure. And so how does that help? I don't really know. So instead of that, I have a big village and Elijah is learning that you like when he's with grandma, he has to listen to grandma. When he's with uncle, he has to listen to uncle because these are people that are going to help me in raising him to be whoever the heck he's going to be, but also people that are going to help me troubleshoot other issues. And I don't want him to think like I don't have to listen to anybody else because that's going to be a problem. Because you got to listen to teachers, might not want to, but you got to respect them, right? So like I don't know. So what are your things? What are your things?
So that yeah. So I'll just give you mine before. Yeah, I'll just give you mine. So one of mine, and I got this from someone, and I get you know you get a lot of stuff, but this one sat with me. I do my best to raise Eva like a blonde haired, blue eyed boy. Yeah, I try to raise her like a blonde haired, blue eyed boy. So I'll give you one. I tell her that her friends are not her friends. Her friends are her future employees. And it's her job to always be assessing what their skill sets and abilities are so that she'll know what
I love
position
it.
to put them in.
I love it. I need that. We gonna have to have a debrief after this. I I need that. I need that one. How is that working? Is that working or not?
It's hard to tell. It's going to take some time to see what the results are. It's going to take some time. I really don't. I find that sometimes she does use the F word. And every once in a while, I'll course correct. Every once in a while, I try not to do it too often because she knows that I'm trying to undo some of the things that were done to me. And she's like, you know. So we'll see. That one, some things that you give your kids, you won't see the results right away. You will only see it when they become adults.
Well, you have to keep me updated. You got to keep me updated on that one. That one is an interesting one. I'm reading this book called the Fear Fighter Manual, and in the book it talks about some white dudes that purchased a mountain. Did you even know you could buy a mountain? Didn't even know it. But they purchased a mountain, but it was talking about it from the perspective of sometimes white men live a life of no fear. So they think everything is possible. Like, why can't I not own this?
Wait, say that again. You froze. Repeat that. You said sometimes what?
Sometimes white men live a life without fear of doing so.
No, not sometimes. All the time.
So they never thought that it was they never thought that it was impossible not to own a mountain. They were like, yeah, I want to own this mountain. And whoever thinks about owning a mountain, I didn't even know a mountain was something that you could own. I thought it was nature. I thought nature owned the mountain. I didn't even know you could own the mountain.
They're colonizing space next. There's no limits for white men. They colonize Earth. They'll be colonizing planets very soon.
They own a mountain, a group of them. So it was like, how can I be that bold, right? I thought nature owned the mountain. I'm still like, who do you negotiate with to put the price tag on the mountain?
I'm gonna give you another one. I'm gonna give you another one. I don't tell her no. She asks me for something, I don't tell her no. Instead, I say we compromise, and I say you can negotiate with me, and we can come up with something. But I never tell her no.
So how is her negotiation skills?
She's getting good. She's getting really good. There's times when I'm like, dang, you didn't write that one down. That was a good one. No, I don't tell her.
Do you find that when she's negotiating with you, do you think that she crosses a line, or do you think that she still understands that you are an authority?
She's very respectful. Like if you ask Eva if she wants a piece of candy, she'll look to me first. You know, some kids will be like, sure. Anytime somebody offers her something, because I've told her respect adults, but I've also said because of my experiences, a lot of people in the Black tribe have been taken advantage of by adults. I'm one of those people. So unfortunately, I've had to say to her, listen, you respect adults, but within reason. If you think a motherfucker is off, you don't have to. Like when we went to visit her father in Texas, and he had a roommate at the time. And the roommate's dad was there. He's African. They're all African, Nigerian. And the guy said hello to her, and she didn't respond back. And they were like, oh, in my culture. And I said, listen, in my culture, Black men have taken advantage of children. So she's not, when it comes to men, sorry. She'll, white men too. Yeah. I encourage that. Sorry, but I've had fucked up experiences. Sorry.
But I think that is also an important thing. I think that's also an important difference between raising Black girls and raising Black boys. And I think that we have to understand that, right? Like and that's why whether you are married or single or in something in between, that's why I think that it takes a village. And I think that we say that, but I don't think that we always practice that, right? Like I think that I think that there is like value in having community that you trust help you to do certain things. Like I'm not a man, right? I am actively seeking out male figures in addition to Elijah's dad, right? Because I understand that children don't always go to their parents for stuff. They don't always do that. Sometimes they go to an uncle, sometimes they go to a cousin, sometimes they go to different people to bounce things off of outside of their parents. And so I have been very intentional about like finding other males that I respect that I can introduce around him, because he's gonna have questions that I don't have answers to, because I'm a woman. I don't have these
Well,
answers.
you have a
Right?
husband, so you know.
Yeah, that's true, but also we have different cultures, right? Like he's from the Ivory Coast, I'm from America, right? We have different cultures. We have different
You have
ways
more
that
liberties than
we
most
have
kids
different ways
do.
that we see things, right? And I don't want it to be so far off from reality. And in addition to that, even though that is the case, we have different experiences, right? So like I need to have a well-rounded experience, right? Because I have found too often when you are too secluded with your kid, like you're like, this is my kid and I'm not going to let anybody else have any impact in anything that they're doing, right? It comes a point in every life of someone that you need help from someone else. And I think I have that perspective because when my mom didn't graduate from high school, I got accepted into a college bound program. Neither one of my parents went to college. My mom didn't graduate from high school. My dad graduated from high school, but he is a functional illiterate, right? So I get this mentor. My mentor is a black woman, went to prestigious colleges, and my mom was like, I need her to help you get to where you want to go because I'm limited. And I respected that, right? Because my mom understood that there were certain things that she couldn't help me with because she didn't have the understanding to do that. So I have had a village, which is why it was just natural for me to find a village for him, because even though you think that you can do all things and you can figure out all things, there's certain limitations that you just don't have. Like you don't have the experience, you don't have the tools to know what to do. So how do you find people that you can trust that's going to love your kids the way that you love your kids and help mold them? So she was my mentor. She was only supposed to be my mentor in high school. I went to college. She knew I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to read this general manual of how to graduate. I don't know what I'm doing. She stayed with me throughout college. Like she is my mom's default mother parent, right? Like when I was carrying Elijah, she's also a grandma now. Like I call her for doctor's appointments. My mom still says, I don't
You're
know what
very
she's talking
lucky.
about.
You're very lucky.
Call Glenda, right? And so
Yeah.
I have actively, that has been my life. So even though
God,
Elijah
my
has
life has been the complete opposite of your life. I've been figuring stuff out so long on my own. I don't know any other way.
even though
I've been
Elijah has two parents to me ain't enough. Cause I'm like, yeah, I had this person, I had that person, I had this person. Donnie is now someone, Donnie is someone that I talk to a lot, and he lights a fire under my little butt cheek often, right? Of what to do and how to do and how to continue to be better and what to look for and all of this great stuff that if he didn't tell me, I don't know if another person would have told me, like, so I think that, as we parent, we also parent ourselves, right? Like we also are like, let me find, if I don't have a circle, let me figure out how to get a circle. Let me figure out how to get experience, advice. It doesn't mean you take what everybody has to say, but you can take the pieces that make sense for you, and then you can let people love on you and love on your kids. And I think that that's something that sometimes some people have trouble with receiving love. Like, I want to love on you. I like you. I love you. I think sometimes people have challenges with that and letting people in.
noted. I feel like you're talking about me, but noted.
Okay, so we have this. Yep.
No, I have never had a village, and my mother and my grandmother have, I guess you could say, both raised me. but like you said, they were limited, and I just didn't know how to seek. Now I'm learning how to do it. Like I'm in therapy, and I've done like Landmark Forum, which is Joey says, as far as trusted and respected men, we are trying to build that community with Disciple Mafia Family and Men's Ministry on Facebook. Let me write that down. This Disciple Mafia Family. Mafia.
Hi,
Okay, you can
Joey.
find us on Facebook, watch the video. That's exactly what we are trying to build. Not only, I want to connect him with Laquan. He's looking for something
We
like
are
that.
going to have Joey come on to the show when we have this whole discussion. Joey, I'm going to write my email in the chat for you to definitely reach out to us. Kenyetta earlier said that she wanted to have a discussion on Black parenting, something. Did I get the title right?
Yeah, I mean, we can work on the title, but just like for me, it's undoing what I think has been bad parenting. I'm not saying that Black people are not good parents, but I think some of the older things that we've done, like beating our kids to death, and just things that I've noticed, differences that I've noticed in how we're raising our kids compared to other groups, I think that there's some room for improvement.
I think Joey would be great to have on the show. So I know that next week we have Quan coming in to talk to us about some stuff that I'm excited to learn about. I know on the 18th, we're doing Super Saturday again. If you guys missed it, we did one last month. It was on Saturday. It aired. It started at this time slot, so it wouldn't be the Blackout Live from New York. I'm basically going to still be on, but not my regular segment. And we basically talk to entrepreneurs about their businesses. And if you want more information, you can definitely reach out to Donnie Glover for more information on how to get onto the show. And then the following weeks are a little tricky for programming because we have Christmas on Saturday and then we have New Year's the following week. So I'm not sure if people are going to want to tune in on Christmas to Blackout Live from New York or on New Year's Day, but definitely would love to have different perspectives on parenting, because maybe it does start there, right? Like when we're talking about youth, we wait for the youth to be middle school, high school folks. Do we do it at this age, like Elijah's like 10 months, right? And then how do we have this conversation and this dialogue? I really don't want our generations behind us to continue to have the same conversations that we're having right now around just a lot of different things that we're talking about, because I feel like it's sometimes becomes like a blame game, like, oh, this other generation didn't do that.
They didn't do anything. Yeah, I used to join in those conversations, but
I would
it's
love
easier.
to be solution orientated and then figuring out like new skill sets, new thoughts, new places to reach to. Like we just learned about this new organization here that you can reach out to, connect with, have some dialogue around, what do we really do as a diaspora of Black people? Because if we can't get this together, it's going to be harder for us to get. It's going to be harder for us to get the economics together, right? Because you brought up buying a building together, but if we can't figure out how to communicate with each other, how do we come together to purchase something like that? How do we work together? How do we collaborate? How do we get on the same page? One of the things why other groups seem like they're a little bit more ahead is because everybody buys into the same dialogue, right? Everybody is going to say this thing, right? I don't know if they have a convention. I don't know what's happening, but it's some kind of like we're all on the same page that we all need this. And if somebody does this to one of us, they do it to all of us, and we're all going to stand up and we're all going to do this. I don't know how the heck that happens, how to make that happen, but maybe we can start dissecting a little bit of that here. Dave Chap, I also did an interview with him. He's also on our network. He has a show on Monday nights. He gave me something that was so simple a few weeks ago, which was like ask people their names. Like the way
Ask
to
people their name.
start respecting people is to ask them their name, right? Oftentimes we don't spend a lot of time wanting to know people's names, right? And so
I would take a step further and say memorize their names.
and I was like, that is so simple, but how, like, I've often forgotten to ask someone their name, and then trying to get the name right because I'm always tongue tied for some reason. It's like, okay, keep saying it to me until I get it right. But I think that like having dialogue like this helps us really figure out how to ultimately get to this economic piece because we have so much to do within ourselves
Well,
and
that's
our.
why I applaud you for the show. I think it's a wonderful platform. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Kenyetta, for joining. You guys should know that I have had to convince Kenyetta to come back on as a commentator. In the beginning, she's like, "Your show? You want me on the show?" And then I was like, "Okay, Kenyetta, come back." So now I have Kenyetta here once a month. I think this month is going to be twice a month. So excited about it to continue these dialogues and
It's
these
very
questions. What happened?
it's very fair. I've been in a predominantly white state and I haven't really established my network here and it's been very therapeutic.
Come on and join the
I gotta get
blackusa.news.
my blackness, man. I gotta get my black shot.
Well, girl, whenever you need it, it's here because we have programming every day, Monday through Sunday, usually at 7 Eastern. I know that that's 2 hours up for you because you're in Colorado, but and then on Sunday, I know that Michael Haney has a show that's at like 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe. But yeah, but definitely you could drop by. Donnie Garber has his show 10 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. You could get what you need. Get what you need. Subscribe. You could definitely go back and read, look, listen, connect with everybody. Everybody's so friendly, so open. Everybody has different types of shows. But I would love, 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 love to have you guys back. Michael, I have not forgotten about you. We are scheduling you to come onto the show as well so we could talk. I'm excited. I'm excited that we're getting Black folks together to share what we are doing. I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited to learn about what's happening in other cities, challenges that people are having because your challenges are also our challenges. We can't get this thing right if we don't figure out how to drag everybody along with us.
Well, let me just say before you close out, I love Black people. I'm just gonna put that out into the universe because I feel like I'm probably not putting that out there enough. I love you guys, especially Black Americans. You guys are special. And it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take a couple hundred years, but eventually we're gonna get this thing together.
So yes, this has been Tasemere, your host of the Blackout Live from New York, here every Saturday, 10:15 Eastern. Sometimes you will see my commutator, Kenyetta S. Rose, at least once a month. We're going to be dissecting things that are just happening in the Black community. And all things all should lead back to Black economics because we need to figure out how we survive in these cold, cruel worlds that we live in across the diaspora of Blackness. We all have to figure out how we get together and build each other up and problem solve, troubleshoot different things that are coming up. Joey, I'm excited to connect with you. I put my email in the chat. Michael, I have not forgotten about you. We definitely have to schedule a time to have you on. Next week, we will have Kenyetta and Quan, who I just met through Kenyetta, but have heard a lot about him. Super excited to have him on the show, introducing him to you guys and just continuing the dialogue. Until then, see you later. Be well.